Hello, everyone. It's Lee again. So today I think I want to talk about obsession, and I'm someone who obsesses quite a lot. And I would say that the object of my obsession that is probably the least healthy right now is my phone. Uh, Not that I'm obsessed with the device itself, but it's what I end up doing with it. And so I've talked about my nervous attitude before, but sometimes when I send people messages, I'm the kind of person that will always be looking at the read part of of the message, or see if the person is online or if they're actively typing. Sometimes I just impulsively go back and back and back because it's like I want to be able to have an interaction with that person. And texting is so very slow that having a natural fluid reaction is extremely difficult without, calling up that person, maybe recording a voice note or something like that. And what's problematic about this, other than the fact that it takes up my time, is that I start to invent scenarios in my head of why that person is taking so long to respond. Um, why is it that sometimes certain people will say, like, hi, how are you? What's up? And then kind of disappear for a little while. That tends to happen a lot. And I understand that people have very busy lives and they don't always have the ability to stay engaged in a conversation through text. Um, but even so, it is a point of anxiety for me because I am always worried about how my words will be construed, especially in written form. It's hard to convey tone or nuance within text, so I get very anxious about what's the person going to say? Did I say something wrong? The person's taking an awful long time to respond. I see the person's online, but he's still not responding to me. And then I have to remind myself, oh, he's probably talking to someone else and messaging other people and has all kinds of other things going on that he can't always respond to me. That kind of scenario. But it does become torturous because so if I go into my WhatsApp right now and I look into my messages, one of my friends that I said, how is work going? Um, he hasn't responded yet. And, he's at work. And so I understand he's busy. And he uses WhatsApp for work as well. So sometimes it can be hard to not to neuroticize that situation, even though, like, logically I know he's at work, but in another portion of my brain it's saying he's not listening to you, he doesn't want to talk to you, he doesn't want to listen, don't text so much, you're annoying him. So it's simultaneous conflict between two sides of my brain, it feels like. Um, and I don't do this with any one person. I do it with everyone. There's no one in particular who is immune to this. Um, and I think where this comes from is um, growing up, I didn't really have very good communication skills with people. And um, certain people in my lives, or in my life, would respond to my childlike curiosity with anger. With, like, stop annoying me, go away, or I remember one of the most common reactions for me as a child. People knew how to discipline me when I was a kid. And I don't think this is. I don't know if this is something that I just eventually grew into over time, or is it something that's a natural part of my personality. So whether it's natural or learned, I'm not quite sure. But um, the simplest thing that somebody could do to make me cry when I was young was to simply shake their head no and frown. And that's it. And for that reason, I'm very hyper focused on people's faces. The twitch of their eyebrows, or the ruffling of the skin in their nose, or the quivering of a lip, or something like that. I notice these tiny details that give hints about a person's emotions. And sometimes when I see that, I heighten it times 10. So what could be minor annoyance could be an extreme, like, or I interpret it as I am being a dumbass to that person, or I don't know. I overinflate what the other person may think of what I'm doing or saying. Um, and it's just caused a lot of insecurities in my communication with people. I obsess, I overcheck, I ask again and over till I annoy people. I remember, and I grew up with brothers, all brothers. There's no girls in the family other than my mom and aunts and grandparents. So, growing up with brothers can be hard because boys and men are, to some degree, I think, naturally temperamental and aggressive. And I have never responded well to aggressive talk. And sometimes I would say something to my older brother and he would snap at me. And he would call me an idiot. He'd call me stupid because I was asking a question. Not because necessarily the question was stupid, but because the mere act of asking was interpreted as stupid, as if I should have already known that. Of course, he was also young at the time. He was a bratty teenager. And so some of his reactions to me were very childish. So looking back on it, I can understand where he was coming from, because stupid kids are stupid kids. They will say stupid shit. But that has also sort of been a norm for him as well, even into adulthood. So when I get an aggressive reaction from curiosity, or an aggressive reaction from ignorance, not ignorant in the way that you're ignorant, you're stupid, you're dumb, not in an insulting way, but when I say ignorant, I mean not knowing something. And so I was chastised for not knowing something, which was unfair, something I could not control. And that has led a lot to my checking my words all the time and always obsessing over what to say or do. Now, another obsession I often have is with time. And this time obsession it has to do with the balance of work and life, which is something that everyone wants to achieve. But I obsess over it to a stronger degree, I think, than most people. So my obsession with time is, say I go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have a shift until 4 o'clock. So that's a typical 8-hour shift with a 1-hour lunch in between. Okay. Now, whenever I go through that day, I do not consider my work time my useful time. I consider my work time apart from my useful time or pleasure time. So there are times in the day in which I prefer to be a little bit more productive, so I'll maybe study some languages that I've been going over. So I study Japanese and I teach Japanese as well. So that's something I'm always involved in. So I always try to involve these little productive activities for myself. But basically, that 8-hour block of time I do not consider part of my day, my active day. Because for me, a lot of times work is something you numb through, if that makes sense. You glaze through it a lot of the times because it becomes so routine. And this formation of a routine and monotony can sometimes create stress because I feel like I'm not getting enough fun in my life, or I'm not entertaining myself enough. So I will literally count the hours that I have left until I have to go to bed, so that I know how much free time I have in order to spend throughout the day. So if I get home at, say, 5 o'clock and I go to bed at 11, I have 6 hours to play with. I don't consider that a lot of time, to be honest. And I want to be able to do so many other things. And part of being an adult is balancing your wants versus your needs. I do have some trouble favoring my wants over my needs at times. And this is a part of the problem. The fact that I obsess constantly over time. And again, I think this is something that came out of my past because I noticed other people doing it. There were other people who would talk about, work is such an exhausting thing to do. Well, I have 2 days on the weekend, so I can do whatever. And then as the weekend would pass, that it would get to Sunday, and I'm like, this is the last day I have left to rest. I have to work tomorrow. It's 5 o'clock already. I almost have to go to bed. Hearing those grievances, while the people that were making those grievances did not mean for that to be something that affected me, it did. And that's just the reality of it. And so I have to figure out how I can reel that in. How do I make these two major obsessions in my life, one about time and the other about communication online versus communication in person, being obsessive and overly checking things in my phone, that kind of thing. These are the things I need to work on. I depend on this device a lot, and it is extremely difficult to disconnect from it. But I think there needs to be a time that I have to disconnect from this device completely. And that it could be a day, or it could be a whole week. Ideally, I think I would like to do a week without touching this thing even once. There are still other things I'll need to do, like use my computer, but I want to turn this off and not look at it for at least a solid week at some point. I don't know when I'll be able to have that freedom because I do use this for work a lot. But it's probably something I'll have to plan out and let people know that I will be physically unavailable by phone for a significant amount of time. So if anybody needs to get in contact with me in that time, they're just going to have to email me or something. Yeah, that's just going to have to work. So disconnecting from the phone is a goal of mine. That's just something I'll have to communicate with others, though, so that they are aware that I'm not dead. Of course, unless somebody else confirmed that, they would not expect me to be, but you know what I mean. All right. Well, thank you. This video is almost 15 minutes, and that's how much YouTube gives me, so we'll end it here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Find love and light in your life. Thank you so much.